Hey everyone, this is Zephyr, and welcome to the Baileywiki channel, where we teach everyday DMs how to create truly amazing experiences for their players by combining art and technology. We also make modular systems and scenes for Foundry Virtual Tabletop that you can use without any setup, and that's going to be the backdrop for today's video covering the most essential modules that you should be running in Foundry in 2025. Whether you just picked up Foundry or you're an old hat, there's one thing that is definitely iconic about Foundry, and that is the broad world of add-on modules. But what do you really need? It can be really easy to throw in everything in the kitchen sink, and it can also be really easy to be intimidated by just the sheer massive amount of modules that are out there and available to you. So with this video, we're attempting to do a quick flyover of the modules that we consider absolutely essential. The modules that we're covering here today need to follow a few different criteria. First and foremost, they have to be easy to pick up. It doesn't matter if there's a lot of depth below the surface, but you've got to be able to get in and use it for what it says on the tin quickly and easily. Then we also need to make sure we have broad system support. If it doesn't support absolutely every single game system, it needs to support the vast majority of them. No system-specific modules here. Then it also needs to work for just about any kind of game that you could be running. Not everyone is running a really detailed battle map oriented campaign with a bunch of different combat scenarios. Some people are doing more theater of the mind, political intrigue, and roleplay heavy games, or using systems that really support that. So these modules help support all of those different types of games and are going to be great for you to pick up. So if you're brand new to the program, these are the first modules that we suggest you pick up before you dive deeper into the pool of modules. And if you've been around for a while, double check your module list to see if you have these included, and let us know if there are other ones that you think should be added to the list. Before we dive into our most essential modules, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of our honorable mentions. These modules are all fantastic, and we personally can't live without them, but they don't apply for every single game or every type of game, and so that's why they are going to be honorable mentions here. First up, we've got Token Magic Effects and FX Master. So FX Master is going to be the thing responsible for the birds flying around, and you can leverage this for a whole lot more. But perhaps the most striking and iconic part of it is also the weather system. So here again, we've got the birds going on in the animal section, but you can also add in things like rain or snow. So it's a really easy way to add some immersion to your games, but if you're mainly doing theater of the mind, or you are not using so much battle maps per se, and you're using more just single images where you're going to be narrating and role-playing through that, then maybe it doesn't make as much sense. Then we have Token Magic Effects. And for a similar reason, this is also going to be maybe a little more battle map oriented, although you can use it for a variety of things. To leverage it for more than just tokens or battle map applications, it's going to take a little bit more learning. So Token Magic Effects, as you might guess, allows you to apply different special effects to tokens. So here I've applied an electrical field. You can remove that. You can also add in a kind of frost effect, and also have overlays and underlays visible as well, and create a variety of different really awesome effects. But then it really blows wide open when you are exploring bigger capabilities, such as with this building here. We can actually completely change the roof color using Token Magic Effects. So there's a lot of capabilities with both of these, and they're really amazing modules, but if you're not using battle maps or you're just a more theater of the mind oriented game, then it might not make sense for you. We'll continue a little bit with Token Magic Effects as we introduce our next honorable mention, which is going to be Monk's Active Tile Triggers, which allows you to turn any tile in Foundry into a powerful, smart switch and logic gate. So here we have these set up that on double click, they're going through different Token Magic Effects filters and different images cycling through on every double click. We also have interactive braziers that will toggle between lit and unlit with a single click, as well as play sounds. There is a litany of things you can do with Monk's active tile triggers, and we absolutely adore it. Similarly to token magic effects and FX Master, if you're not using battle maps, this has a lot less utility for you, and the learning curve can be kind of steep. If you're interested in learning more about token magic effects, FX Master, or Monk's active tile triggers, we've got videos on the channel to explore those further. Our final honorable mention is going to be a large group of modules, and this one is going to be exclusive to D&D 5e. And that's going to be the Midiverse. So MIDI-QL and all of its dependencies, as well as the D&D Beyond importer and the Cauldron of Plentiful Resources, etc. This suite makes bringing your content from D&D Beyond into the game and running things quickly and easily an absolute breeze. It is a little complicated to get set up though, and again, it's only for D&D 5e. We've also had a variety of different automation suite tutorials covering this subject on our channel, so you can check those out linked on screen as well. And now, without further ado, let's dive into our list of the most essential modules to be running in Foundry VTT in 2025. The first module that we're going to take a look at is Dice So Nice. You've probably seen this on most Foundry videos covering this, and it is a really cool bit of extra style and flair here. So we have our character, and if we go to roll a deception check, we can do so with advantage, and we can see we have these nice 3D dice that are rolled. Very similar to some other VTTs, but there is a ton of customization here. You and your players can go into the Dice So Nice settings, and in the 3D dice settings, you are able to really customize all of these. I'm using some incredibly default styling right now, but you can get very crazy with all of this. There are stylings for different damage types, some really great presets, and there's even a marketplace to download additional themes and models. This is only scratching the surface, as you can further customize individual dice and add in things such as additional preferences and special effects based upon different roll results. That way you can have something on, say, a natural 20. You can have a white glow whenever you get a crit. And this test roll function allows you to double check all of the different settings that you have. There's also options to import and export these for different presets so that if you're playing in multiple games or running multiple games, you can keep all of your settings in one place. It's a really fantastic and beautiful module that adds just a little bit of extra immersion when you're playing at the virtual table. Going hand in hand with Dice So Nice is Dice Tray. This adds this fantastic little tray here down at the bottom of your chat window. And if there's one thing that's constant, no matter what system, no matter what kind of game you're running, it's that you will need to roll some dice. Dice Tray makes it really easy to add these things in. Instead of having to type out /R and then the dice that you want, etc., you can instead simply click on these different buttons to add in additional dice, and you can right-click to remove them. You can also click on the D20 next to the roll privacy option, and that will give you a dice calculator where you can do some more complex equations very easily. You can also add things like advantage and disadvantage depending upon your system, and add flat numbers as well. And as you can see, that will roll everything just like your character sheet, and it will give you those nice visual effects from Dice So Nice. Next up, we have Monk's Scene Navigation. This is really handy for being able to jump around between your scenes and keep things organized really easily. Right now, we're looking at Foundry without Monk's Scene Navigation installed, and you'll notice if I left-click on any of these scenes, it opens up the scene configuration window, which is maybe nice if I'm prepping things or something like that. And up here in our navigation bar, we have all of our different scenes up here at the top. And to go to a new scene, we can left-click and it will navigate us there from the navigation, or in our scene directory, we can right-click and then select View Scene to go there. Let's take a look now at what it looks like with Monk's Scene Navigation. The first thing that you'll notice with Monk's Scene Navigation is now that my navigation window up here is open, we actually have all of the folders for my navigable scenes set up. So I can have things organized just by folder, and I don't need to have specific prefixes on the names so that I know it's in this particular folder or something like that. You can, of course, change that if you prefer to have all of them in a big long line, but this makes it feel a lot more comfortable to me whenever I am using a lot of scenes in that navigation enabled mode. Then it's a lot easier to keep things organized. Then, of course, we have the really big change of now when I left click, I simply go to the new scene. What's also really nice is it adds this handy go back to previous scene button. If I click on that, it will remember what the last scene I went to was, and it will take me to it. And of course, you can loop that as much as you want. And overall, it makes navigation a lot more intuitive, and it adds some really nice little quality of life and organizational features that we personally can't live without. Our next module is the Baileywiki Mass Edit module. This has been an absolute game changer for us over the last year or so. Basically, when it comes to editing multiple things in Core Foundry, you have some limitations in terms of how things are applied. If you wanted to change the height of all of these things, say instead of a top of 20 here and a top of 9 here, you want everything to be a height of 30. Without Mass Edit, you might select all of these and then open this up and select this and change the height to 30. We'll notice now that these walls are showing that yellow color, and now instead of being terrain walls with the limited light and sight restriction, they're now set to normal. So whenever you select multiple of these walls or lights or sounds and you apply a change when you're only wanting to affect one particular area of all of those lights, walls, sounds, what have you, it is instead going to propagate all of the settings across all of them. But now let's take a look with Mass Edit. If I hit Control Z here and now I reselect these and I hit Shift E, it will bring up this great little window here. And for all of these, I can decide what settings I want to maintain. So here, if I want to change this to wall height 30, then this gets a little checkbox next to it automatically because I changed this field. And that checkbox is saying we're going to apply this to all of these selected things, but we're not going to change anything else. And if I hit Apply, we'll now see that our regular wall has indeed changed to have a top of 30, and our terrain walls also have a top of 30 while remaining with that limited sight and light restriction. So this is incredibly handy when you want to make a lot of changes. For example, if you have a bunch of different torches on a scene or other fire type light sources and you want to change the shade of orange on all of them, but they might have different radii for their dim and bright light, you can just change the color rather than changing all of the other settings. Mass Edit has so much more to offer too. One of the big things that we've been leveraging for is the presets option. Now, this allows you to have things that are configured with certain settings or qualities, and you can apply them selectively to things. For example, you can have a pre-configured light option that has the exact kind of light configuration and color that you want that doesn't require you to fiddle around or copy and paste it in different places, and instead it's just always ready to go at your fingertips. There's also the concept of linking together objects. So in our Baileywiki modules, we have a variety of different pieces here. If we go into buildings, we can see we have a whole church that we can drop in place. And this is completely ready to go. And we have an entire building right here directly from Mass Edit. And it's all linked together so that we can move this and all of the elements will come with it. But that's still not everything that Mass Edit can do. One of the most recent feature additions to Mass Edit is scenescapes. If you saw any of the footage or live play of Ember from the Foundry team, you've probably seen the vistas that they have. This is a slightly simplified version and system agnostic version of that concept, again called scenescapes. This allows you to have more social scenes or just less combat-oriented scenes rather than battle maps for your exploration or your role-playing. And this also includes some of the features that are present in Vistas where you can size up and size down the different elements and tokens within it dynamically based upon your focal point and how you have specified the different aspects of the scene. So this is a really awesome option for people who are doing more theater of the mind or, again, less battle map oriented games. Mass Edit is always evolving and changing. We're always working with the lead developer Aedif on more features and more capabilities here for Mass Edit. So definitely check our channel to see all of the different updates and iterations that are happening to Mass Edit. It really is one of our favorite modules to have come about in the last few years, and that's part of why we wanted to bring Aedif and the module on board into the Baileywiki family. Our next module is going to be Monk's Tokenbar, another fantastic module from Ironmonk, and it adds this great little collapsible panel that shows you all of the different player characters that are on the scene. These are going to be anything that is owned by your players. So by default, it's not going to include player character type actors that are on the scene that are not actually owned by a player. So you'll need to make sure your permissions are set up for that. And what Monk's Tokenbar does is it gives you this great panel for changing movement orientation so that players can no longer move, or they can freely move, or it's going to be restricted to their turn order. There's also this great option to request roles. So if we have Urkek here selected and we click the request role, we can then have all of the different pieces we want for requesting a role. For example, maybe he wants to flip the table over, and we can actually go ahead and put in the DC and the ability or check that we're doing here. And then we can do request with role. And it's going to automatically roll the athletics check for Urkek. You can also select multiple people and request a contested roll that's going to have them use, say, athletics and acrobatics for a grapple check. Additionally, you'll notice that there are these icons directly above these portraits on the token bar, and these correspond to different stats. The default ones for D&D 5e are going to be armor class and passive perception, and I've also added in passive investigation. So you can configure these to also keep track of health or any other kinds of abilities or parameters that you want to keep an eye on as a GM. It's a great way to keep that information at your fingertips without having to have a separate notepad with all of that information or going through all of their character sheets. And speaking of their character sheets, if you want any of that information, you can simply double-click to open up their character sheet. While we demonstrated Monk's Tokenbar in a Theater of the Mind application where you might still have tokens on screen, it's incredibly useful on a battle map, particularly one where you're using overhead tiles, or in this case, levels. Here I have 2 tokens in different positions on the ship, and they're not normally visible to me. Now here we only have the 2, so it's maybe not that hard to find them, especially since I have our elevation set up. But if I wanted to locate them and there was just a slew of other tokens, I can simply click on their portrait and it will take me right to them. This is incredibly helpful because it doesn't care what elevation they're at, it is going to take you right to them and select them properly. Finally, we've got a bit of a combat ready here. I'm going to move Gomer and Ventress underneath the treetops here, and they are going to get into a bit of a tussle with the bandits that have made camp here. When you select everyone and I toggle the combat state, we get this beautiful carousel that appears, and that is courtesy of Carousel Combat Tracker. And this is an amazing module that gives you this beautiful visual indicator of everything that's going on with your combat. And it's a lot cleaner and in a more convenient place than having the combat tracker popped out, or having your sidebar expanded and switching between combat tracker and chat, or having one of those popped out while the other is in your sidebar. With the Carousel Combat Tracker, you are able to roll all of your initiative and reset it, and advance and rewind the different turns. You can also then begin the combat and add events, etc. There's a lot of great options in here, but we're going to focus mainly on its visual appeal. Once everything has started, you can hit Begin Combat. And it has this fantastic enlarged indicator of who has the active turn, and a nice little line indicating where the round begins and ends. So Ventress is first to act at the top of the initiative order. Also worth keeping in mind is that although this is named the combat tracker, you absolutely don't have to use the tracker just for combat. This is a fantastic way to visually represent turn orders and who's next, who just went, what's happening in the flow of whatever sequence you're running where turn order is important. So you can leverage this in all kinds of games, not just combat heavy ones or ones that are in battle maps, etc. This is going to bring us to our final essential module or category of modules, and that's going to be a token HUD of some sort. And so here we have our character Ventress in combat, and normally with Foundry, if we wanted to use his abilities, we would double click on him to open up his sheet, and then we would go into his spells if we wanted to cast a spell, or into his inventory to use one of his items. Now, that's a lot of different processes to go through in order to have this up, and then you have to move it out of the way if you want to be able to see things at the same time, or you have to close it, or get another module to pop this out onto a second monitor, etc. And this is where a combat HUD or a token HUD is really useful. So one of the ones that we like a lot is the Argon combat HUD. This has broad system support. There is a core module and then separate modules for a vast array of different systems in Foundry VTT. And from here, you have a whole bunch of different options. If we have the dagger and the rapier equipped, we can then simply drag these over onto his Argon combat HUD here. And now we'll see that we have these options for taking his action with the rapier or the dagger. And you can also switch to different equipment loadouts by clicking on these buttons. And this is a lot more intuitive and a lot less invasive than opening up our character sheet. So if we want to use Armor of Aedif, we just click on our spell slot and use it. And then also if we wanted to do something like roll initiative, or if we wanted to do a different skill check, those are also available here to us as well. So this is a great way to have everything all in one place. And the reason why we like this one so much is it's fantastic for players. It's really shiny, it's really fancy, it's very sleek, and it looks really good, and it feels like something that belongs there. It also has nice reminder actions for the different systems that you can use it with. So for D&D, for example, we've got the disengage, dodge, ready, dash, shove, and hide actions. The default actions that, especially if you're a brand new player, it can be easy to forget about. It's easy to only look at what you have in your inventory and not what everyone has access to all of the time. It also has the action economy broken down and has an option for passing your turn and an indicator for how much movement or how many squares of movement you have in a given turn. So it's really useful for onboarding players as well. For GMs, we prefer to use Token Action HUD. Token Action HUD adds this nice little drop down that starts with the token's name. And then you can lock and unlock it and customize the different aspects of this. But it's really nice because there is nothing complicated here. There's not a bunch of frills. It's very simple. And it's very easy to use if you want to roll checks for a given NPC. So it's not taking up the valuable screen real estate that you have as a GM. And it's still giving you nice access to all of the features that you would want from opening up the character sheet. Now, if we have a more complex NPC that's maybe kitted out more like a boss with a variety of different abilities, maybe then we'll still use a more fully featured token HUD like Argon. But for our general grunts who usually are just going to run up and attack something or stand back and shoot something, this is a really great way to handle all of that. We can also add in things like different effects directly from here and do extra options like rolling initiative, making things invisible, and removing things from combat. There's a whole lot more customization you can do, from reorganizing how these pieces appear to changing the stylings and changing what appears in each different list. So there are a ton of options for customizing this. Similarly to Argon, Token Action HUD also has a core module that kind of works as a library, and then a variety of modules for different systems. Most systems for Foundry have both Token Action HUD and Argon available for them, so regardless of what system you're playing, check both of those out and take a look. No matter what system you're using and no matter what style of token HUD you want, it is a really invaluable tool to have in your arsenal to be able to have these nice, clean little interfaces that don't take up a bunch of yours or your players' screen real estate as you're trying to play the game. It's also not just for battle map oriented play. If you're doing theater of the mind or you're doing things like the scenescapes, you can still leverage the token HUDs and you still have access to all of the great features of skill checks, etc. Or if you have different item uses or you're in systems that don't leverage combat as much but still have the concept of actions and bonus actions, you can still absolutely take advantage of token HUDs. That's going to wrap up our list of the essential modules for Foundry VTT to be running in 2025. If you're brand new to the program, we hope that this list has given you a great starting point to begin approaching the daunting world of Foundry modules. It's a very big pond out there, but you can ease your way into it, and hopefully this is a good starting point for you. We certainly wouldn't want to live without these particular add-on modules. And if you've been around for a while, we hope that we covered some of your favorites and maybe turned you on to some new ones. Let us know in the comments if there are additional modules that you think are absolute must-haves no matter what game system you're using, and we will take a look at doing a follow-up as well. Once again, this has been Zephyr with the Baileywiki channel. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss an upload from us, and also consider becoming a patron. Not only do you support the channel, but you also gain access to all of the modular systems and scenes that we've made for Foundry VTT, like the ones that we showcased here today. Again, it's been Zephyr. Thank you so much for watching, happy gaming, and have a good one.